Hey everyone, welcome to today's Program Yourself Thin podcast. Today we're talking about the secret to staying thin, not getting thin. They're two different things and they require two different strategies. And unfortunately, the only thing you've ever learned about in your life, if you're a dieter, is you have been constantly focused on getting thin. But staying thin is a totally different game. And the main reason is that in order to maintain something long term, you need to have the subconscious programming, the muscle memory, the neural connections and networks that allow you to do the things that get you the result you want. So it's a deeper way to think about it, but I think it's really important. Excuse me, because what people tend to think about with their weight loss is that they're going to use their conscious mind, their prefrontal cortex, to force themselves to do all the right things, right? You refer this as your willpower. So you're going to follow some plan that tells you what to do. Maybe it's don't eat any carbs. And now you're going to use this prefrontal cortex part of your brain and always be alert and aware and able to make yourself not eat any carbs or whatever, not eat this thing, do this thing. It's forcing you to do what you are going to have to do. And if you set yourself up this way, if you build your success around you having to consciously be aware, focused, and in control of what you're doing, you're pretty much always going to fail ultimately because your brain's not built to run this way. Your brain is built to run on autopilot. Again, in hypnosis, we have a conscious and a subconscious mind. The conscious, logical, rational part of your brain is your prefrontal cortex, where your willpower is, your analytical mind, your logical mind. The rest of your brain would refer to as your subconscious mind. And this is the part of your brain that really runs the show. If you look at a typical day, what you're doing is you're relying on learned behaviors that have been programmed in and that you now do on autopilot. Your eating follows certain patterns and routines. You don't just randomly eat each and every day. You don't eat brand new things in different quantities each and every day. You eat similarly, right? Now, again, you may eat similarly on Mondays. Tuesdays might be a little different, but there's a routine and a pattern to your eating. And that's because your subconscious mind's in control of it. The food you even consider, the amount you think are enough, what you like to eat, all of this stuff's been programmed into you and runs on autopilot now. And what you've tried to do to lose weight in your life is you've tried to use your conscious mind to fight against this part, but it doesn't work well. And to show you why weight loss doesn't work for most people, I like to reference like using a computer mouse, right? It's like you have learned how to use it with one hand. Right. But now you know everything there is to know about using a computer mouse logically, but you're only able to really use it with one hand. And if you try and use your other hand, what you'll quickly find out is it's tiring. It takes a lot of energy and focus and thought for you to run that mouse, because it hasn't been automated. You haven't installed that program. Okay. And so when you start to look at things this way, this changes the whole game. Because what you've tried to do is just fight against your automated behaviors. And in Program Yourself Thin, what we're looking at is how do I live at my goal weight, not just get there. And the path we follow is how do you program in new skills, thoughts, and behaviors that make you be your goal weight, you see? And so it's a different approach. And so it may take a little bit longer, because again, you can certainly force yourself to do extreme things for a little while and get dramatic results. I wouldn't argue that. But I think where it falls apart is the maintenance piece of it. And it's very difficult to maintain really difficult, hard things. So in Program Yourself Thin, what I would suggest you all do is you start to focus on automaticity, installing programs that run on their own. Again, as an example, probably the healthiest program you've ever installed into yourself is your toothbrushing habit, right? And now as an adult, you probably brush your teeth at the same times each and every day, pretty much on autopilot. You don't really have to think about it. So we follow that path of developing the skills and the abilities that run on near autopilot that bring us towards our goal weight. What are some of those things? Well, some of the obvious ones, lifestyle-wise, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water to be at optimal hydration, being more relaxed, breathing more deeply, nourishing yourself at a higher level, moving more, meditating and quieting your mind down, expressing and practicing gratitude. If you start to do these things naturally, automatically, day in and day out, it makes a fundamental difference to the food choices you make, and then we can look at even the food choices you make, what foods are normal and natural for you, right? The snacking has probably become automated from when you think about it to when you go get the snacks to when they're in your house to when you eat them. There's probably a routine there that's pretty automatic, right? And you'll notice this with most of the foods you eat. So the food you consider, the amounts you eat, the choices you make, a lot of this has just been programmed in. You're just doing it on autopilot. So with Program Yourself Thin, what we're looking to do is we're looking to reprogram those so that our automatic eating behaviors just move in a more natural, healthy, beneficial direction. But once that happens, now you don't have to fight against yourself all the time, and you don't have to be on high alert all the time. You can start to trust yourself. You can start to trust yourself that you're going to make the right choices and behaviors that are going to bring you in the direction you want. And it's fundamentally a different approach than dieting. And I would suggest that it's much more effective because of that. So I hope this helps you, and I hope it helps you see more clearly why you've struggled to lose weight in the past with your diets and a better way forward. And if you want to go deeper into this whole philosophy, you can click the link in my bio, or you can go to this link I'll put in here if you're over in Facebook land, and you can go get a free hypnosis session, and I give you a bunch of other free stuff as well. Boop, there it is. What's up, Jane? Jane says, hi, Jim. I just joined the program and I understood that I would get an email each day, but have not gotten one today. All right, I will look into that. Don't like to hear that. It's annoying. Flower. Yeah, I'll check that, Jane. What's up, Natalie? Natalie says, great premise. I love hearing your ideas and love how you look at things. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, I think that I would say, that is one of my strengths, is that I look at this quite a bit differently than how the average person does. And it's simply just because I've been exposed to different information. I was exposed to different information growing up, and it really affected me. And so I've spent the last 30 years really going down a different path than I think most people, when it comes to weight loss, go down. And I will tell you, it makes so much sense once you hear it, but we tend to not do this. But the path I've gone down that I think makes it so different is that I really modeled people that had lost weight and kept it off. That's my secret, is that I have been obsessed with people who have successfully lost weight and kept it off for at least 2 years. These are my mentors. These are the people I learned from. And they have a fundamentally different mindset, approach, strategies than dieters do. Again, dieting is about losing weight quickly, as fast as possible. And living at your goal weight is a completely different thing, So, I think when you look at things that way, you obviously, you are exposed and think of different information. So I appreciate that you enjoy it, though. Thanks for listening. Deb said, no, someone else says, how to stop binge eating? I can't. Again, I say this all the time because I think one of the biggest mistakes dieters make is they will say, how do I stop binge eating? How do I stop emotional eating? I hear that all the time. Those are the two biggest categories, but those categories are so huge that it means almost nothing. It's like saying, how can I make more money? Well, I mean, how? I don't. Well, we're gonna have to break it down. I mean, there's a million ways to make money. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways to stop binge eating, but the most important question is, what's going on with your binge eating? There's a pattern to it. You don't just binge eat. There's a pattern to the binge eating. Okay. And so if we're going to resolve this, we need to start by understanding the pattern. We need to understand what the problem is in detail. And we can't use big, vague language like, how do I stop binge eating? Again, that's a dieting idea. And the answer is always that just use your willpower and just stop doing it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. That's always the answer in the diet world. Just don't do it. Just stop doing it. And I always say dieting is like the equivalent of like, just say no to drugs. Remember that back in the 80s, Nancy Reagan used to do that thing. And it was just say no to drugs. Well, that didn't work, right? There's just more to it. And I would say the same thing with the binge eating. You've got to go deeper into it. What's your pattern? You're not binge eating all day, every day. You're binge eating in certain situations. It's probably at night, probably after you're tired, probably when you're emotionally, not feeling great. There's probably other factors too. But once you start to break down your binge eating patterns, what's going on, what triggers it, how you respond, what you're thinking, what you're feeling when you're doing it, now we have a lot more to work with. And we speak in way more specific frameworks. And we say things like, I want to work on not binge eating on, Friday nights. I have a pattern of binge eating on Friday nights, and now all of a sudden we can dive into that though. Again, that might be partly your reward, partly you're tired from the week, partly you've planned on doing it. It might have a social component. There's just so many factors, and I'm sorry if this tires some of you out. I know some people say, oh my God, I was going to take the injection, but there's no easy way out. You know what I mean? Like if you want to get real good results in life, I just have not ever seen any shortcuts ever work, and certainly not with weight. So you can though, anyways, by the way, you absolutely can stop binge eating. You haven't been able to stop because you just try and stop it with your willpower. And that's a terrible strategy. So it's not, I think most people do this in their lives in general. I think we all do this to some degree, but dieters especially really confuse can't with having figured it out yet. So how do you stop binge eating? I can't stop. Well, you can stop. You just haven't figured out how to yet. I think is much more accurate because you absolutely can stop binge eating. I'll say to the person who says I can't stop binge eating, what if I give you $1 million not to binge eat this week? You think you're going to, how hard are you going to fight to not binge eat if you got $1 million on the line? Right. Well, now all of a sudden you say, oh, well, yeah, but that's because there's $1 million. Yeah. But again, we're talking about your capacity, the resources involved in you. And so if all of a sudden I start giving you $1 million, all of a sudden you have all this ability that a minute ago you said you didn't have. So which is it? Because there's a big difference. There's a big difference between literally not having the ability to do something and not having the motivation to enact the ability to do something, right? These are two totally different things. And most of the time with dieters, it's not that they can't create the changes or results they want. It's that they just don't know how to do it is a much more accurate way to describe that. Jane says, also ordered the hard copy of the blueprint. Any idea how long it may take to come? One thing which is unfortunate is the exchange rate made the blueprint and the program quite expensive. Yeah, I know. I feel for you. I know my Canadian brothers and sisters. The exchange rate's tough, and then postage is bonkers to Canada on top of it. How long will it take? It's already been mailed. So actually, and I mailed yours a different way. So yours is actually, you want to know what? I can tell you when it's going to be there. Watch this, Jane. Let's see. When's it expected? Oh, no, I don't see. I guess I don't know. Where was it? It was putting it somewhere. Let's see if it's, oh, look at that. Estimated delivery Wednesday, February 11th. So there you go. Corey Coy says, true, no shortcuts, simple but good reminder. Yeah, we got to remind ourselves of that because the whole diet industry is shortcuts, and it's like if you can, I like higher level thought shifts rather than lower ones, meaning that I could sit here and go through each and every diet one at a time and just, explain why they don't work. But I think it's way better to go up to a higher level and say, all the diets have these qualities and this is why none of them work, because none of the diets work. Not a diet. There's over the last 100 years, you couldn't tell me, over the last 100 years, you can't tell me one diet that is the top of the list. What's one diet that works long-term? Like there's literally not even one, maybe Weight Watchers. And that's simply because of the social piece, but that's a crazy statistic when you think about it. That there's not even one diet over the last 100 years that rises to the top. Now, again, I'm not talking about like if you follow a diet strictly and you lose weight, like you can lose weight on a diet, obviously, when you're following it. I'm talking about long-term. I'm talking long-term effectiveness, and no diet has long-term effectiveness in any, significant way. So why is that? There's a lot of reasons why, but one of the big reasons is that dieting they're just shortcuts and hacks, really, and this because every diet is built around one thing, right? It's every diet's built around one thing. It's a literal marketing concept because they know they're marketing to people that are overwhelmed and apathetic. So they need to make the diet sound as simple as possible. So that's how just stop eating carbs, just stop eating for 16 hours. Oh, just count your points, just track your calories, just restrict. Just. When you hear just, right, that's always a good sign that maybe take a step back. But again, I think you need a comprehensive, holistic plan. If you're serious, I think weight is a multi-layered, multifaceted thing to take on. And the idea that I'm just going to give you a plan and you open it up and it says, don't eat carbs. The idea that that's going to help you actually live at a lower weight for the rest of your life is so silly. It's hard to even comprehend it. You know what I mean? Like it really is crazy. So, Jane says, is it coming snail mail? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you mean like at USPS, it's coming UPS, which I never use, but I did today. So yeah, but you should have it next week at this time. That's pretty good too. Cause I will tell you, when I've sent things post office to Canada, it's taken a while. So this is way faster. Corey says, do you track protein? And if so, what's a good baseline? I do not track protein and I never have. And I think I saw a great way to put it, decentralizing protein from your diet. Boy, oh boy, protein's the it girl right now. It's the it nutrient, and we go through this. I mean, if you pay attention to the diet industry, it's a never ending cycle. It's low fat and it's low sugar. Now it's low carb. Now it's low gluten. Now it's high protein, and it's always something. And the idea of protein is really pushed so hard now because there's so much money behind it. There's not a lot of scientific evidence that stuffing yourself full of protein is the healthiest choice. And I say that based on, if you look at the blue zones, they looked at the whole world and they said, who's got the highest number of people that live to 100 years old? They went to those areas, 5 of them, and they analyzed what they ate. And they started to notice all of them, what they all had in common is they all ate high carb diets. None of them were high protein diets. They were all high carb diets, whole natural carb diets. That's the healthiest diet there is. But we live in a reality where black is white and white is black. And we're given now, I think protein's important. Please understand. Protein's absolutely crucial, important. Okay. But the idea that you need as much of it as being pumped into your brain these days, I think is silly. I don't know what the basis for that is. I don't know what populations they're looking at that needs this much protein. And I think that a lot of it is driven by the meat industry, and there's a lot of money being made off of selling protein. And I think that, I think the protein stuff is overstated. Now take it what you will. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. So take it what you will. But I've never tracked protein. And I think people are so worried about protein intake. But let me ask you, have you ever taken a protein test to test how much protein is in your body? You ever taken a protein deficiency test in your life? And the answer is no, unless you're in some extremely outlier situation, because it's impossible to be protein deficient if you eat a normal amount of calories every day. So this fear of protein now, okay, so what? So I'm a little biased on this because I have been a vegetarian, pescatarian technically for the last 25 years. And I will let you know that when people hear you're a vegetarian, the first question they ask, right? Where do you get your protein from? So people almost Pavlovianly will say where you get your protein from. But when you really reflect on it, how much protein do you really need? Is the bigger question, in my opinion. Now again, I could crumble into dust here. I don't eat a lot of protein. I don't eat meat. So maybe I'm going to crumble into dust and, and you say, see, Jim, you should eat more protein. But I don't think that, and again, I do reference a lot of big ass societies in the modern world that are high carb, whole natural food diets, relatively low protein, that are thriving. So I don't feel worried about that. But anyways, I kind of went on a rant there a little bit. But so yeah, I don't track protein, and I don't know what a good baseline would be. Now that being said, I think protein's great. I think it's important. Great whole high value sources of protein into your body, I think is wonderful. Okay, and important and necessary. But I think it's overstated, and I think there's a lot of people putting a lot of energy into eating a lot of protein. That energy would be spent better places, and I think you can get better results too. But that's my opinion. So take it or leave it. Jen says, not being on a diet, but learning how to eat properly and drinking tea is not a proper diet. Yeah, I agree, Jen. I agree. So eating all your food groups is, and it's knowing what is actually serving sizes. So people, if you're thinking about just drinking tea, yeah, you'll lose weight, but when you start eating, you'll gain it back. So just Google what is a serving size. Yeah, I agree with what Jen's saying. It's the idea that, again, the weight loss mindset is I'll do some extreme thing to lose weight, but it's not a long term plan. It's like the diet mindset is so short sighted that you're really, dieters are very willing to do extreme things for a little while to lose some weight. But if you zoom out and reflect on that strategy, it's silly, because you're gonna do all this work for what? For a temporary weight loss that's not going to last, because you're not focused on what you're doing long term. So yeah, like Jen says, if you could drink tea for a week, but eventually you got to eat. So okay, so you lost weight for a week. Now you go back to normal and you put your weight back on. So is that the goal? Is that your goal? It can't be, So again, there needs to be a different strategy. Oh, okay. There's Jen. Jen says, good for you. And I bet you're starved of protein. Protein gives you energy. So I don't know where you're getting your energy from. It's certainly not the sun. Yes, because they're avoiding the carbs, which she also knows that gives you. Well, I'm not sure what Jen's saying here, but it's kind of the classic, right? That if you don't eat meat, you're not going to eat protein, which reveals a complete and total ignorance of protein. There's protein in lots of things, and one of the top things is beans. So I guess technically we all get our protein from the sun, in essence, because if it wasn't for the sun, you know what I mean? Like it's the it's a cycle. The animals eat the greens, or the greens energy comes from the sun. So yeah, I'm not starved for protein though. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like if you eat enough calories, you're not starved for protein. Your body makes it. It gets it from places. So it's that's an illusion, and it's a weird one too. I don't know. I don't understand how we could live just for so long on Earth and not know some of these things. And again, I can't. I'll state it again because I know I have to. But it's like I love protein. I love protein as much as I love fat, and as much as I love carbs, and as much as I love fiber. I love them all. You can't do well without any of them. Okay. But what I'm saying is that I believe we're in a place right now where protein is being really hyped up beyond. I'm not sure where all that hype comes from. Protein. Listen, folks. Again, it's the protein paradox. How can protein on one hand be the thing that bodybuilders use to put mass on and bulk on, but it's the same thing you're going to use to lose weight? Why? Because you think protein is going to make you fuller? It does make you fuller. It definitely has satiating effects, but they pale in comparison to fiber. So if you're looking to be more full, fiber is a much more effective strategy for most people, because you already got enough protein in you, And I just, so anyways, that, but you don't need to eat a ton of protein to feel good and to be alive. Pam says, I'm finding that if I heavy up on protein, my carb cravings all but disappear. Jen says, have you ever heard of a well-balanced meal? Do you know what that means? What protein does is stabilize your sugar so you don't have highs and lows. When you have highs and lows, you tend to eat more when you don't eat protein. I mean, that's not true. Jen's talking a bunch of dumb shit, but that's okay. I don't mind that. You know what I mean? It's okay to me. You tend to eat more when you don't eat protein. I mean, some people do, some people do. Clean your nose. Okay. Again, listen, but I like having this conversation because I think that people get very triggered when you talk about protein. And let me just back it up. I don't give a shit how much protein you eat. You could eat just protein all day long. You could be a carnivore, go to the max, and you may thrive on it. And if you thrive on it, I think that's great. Because the number one rule of programming yourself thin is there is no right or wrong. There's only what works for you. So if eating protein all day long is great for you and you love it, knock yourself out. you know? But what I'm saying is that there's a general message in society that I think over focuses on protein and under focuses on whole natural foods and fiber. When's the last time you heard about fiber? And I would say fiber is the way bigger missing ingredient in your diet than protein for most of you. Jen says your sugars aren't stable, and the reason why is because diabetics, their sugars are too high. I don't know. I mean, but this is what I mean. I don't mind this because I like when people just like say blanket statements, because it happens all the time with weight loss and nutrition, and it's not to say, I mean, clearly, some people, you know what I mean? Their protein consumption is going to affect their sugars. And I mean, all of it works together, but you don't think fiber affects your sugar intake? I don't know. Lucy says, I lost over a stone just eating mindfully. Nice job, Lucy. I gained weight eating more protein. Big mistake. A lot of people gain more weight eating protein because they think they have to hit these protein goals, so they can't get the weight down. I see that all the time. We're going to act like that doesn't exist. I've seen a lot of people that are just like, they believe so deeply, especially women in their middle ages. They're so obsessed with protein because that's what's popular right now. And they get so obsessed with protein that they're trying to eat all the time to get to their protein levels, and they're stressing out about it, and they're over consuming to do it. I see it all the time. So again, I take the no bullshit oath here, and I'm not going to bullshit you all and tell you just the same. Listen, I can make a ton of money just selling protein bullshit to you all. I get literally every single day, I get people asking me if I want to start promoting different protein supplements and products. It's huge money. And again, protein's important, but I don't think it's as important as they're making it sound. Now, again, I'll base on this. I'll ask you this, Jen. What big society, what modern society has a high protein diet that has health numbers that you want to emulate? So what big society of huge protein eaters are you referencing to make your decision that protein's so great? Again, I can reference the blue zones. I can reference virtually every civilization, because every civilization was a high carb diet virtually. So what society are you referencing when you say, yeah, eating lots and lots of protein is the secret to good health? What society? Yeah, protein raises blood sugar, and the blood sugar turns to fat. Again, people there's a lot of ideas. Jen says they tend to binge eat. And if you add protein to your food, you don't do that. So that's what I mean. Like you may not do that, Jen, but other people may. Again, it's this idea that your experience is everyone's experience is what it does drive me crazy with the weight loss industry, because that's really how it operates. You know what I mean? Is basically the idea is that this worked for me, now you all do it. All of you have to, all of you have to be keto. That's the way you handle it. All of you got to be vegan. That's how you handle it. And it's like that one viewpoint is the right way attitude is kind of wild to me. Jen says, not true. I'm a diabetic type 1 and I don't eat like you. I'd be dead within a week because sugars would be too low. So they always said, if you eat like a diabetic, you're eating the healthiest. Jen, you don't even know how I eat. Fiber actually lowers your carbs. Well, now I'm not sure. I don't know if she's drinking or what's going on. Nothing like the satisfaction of an apple. I agree. Julie says, love your ethics. Thank you. Thank you. Have no protein in your diet is going to cause you other problems as well. Who said that? Yeah, but this is why I'm glad you said that, Jen, because this is why I have to repeat when I talk about protein. I have to say every 30 seconds, I have to mention, I like protein. I think if you play the tape back, you will not have heard me say, stop eating protein, folks. I don't think you'll have heard me say that. Okay. Because I obviously protein's required and it's a necessity. So no, I never said don't eat protein. I think protein's very important. I think it's overstated. And I think a lot of people are trying to aim at too much protein. Nobody has a high protein diet. If you eat 30 grams, that's the size of your palm. That's exactly how much. This is actually from a diabetic dietitian. I mean, I don't give a shit anyways. I mean, dietitians, what are they, infallible? I don't know. I don't know if any of you have talked to dietitians. I've talked to a ton of dietitians. I don't agree with all of them. They don't all even believe in the same shit, So, yeah, I think that, I don't know. It's kind of funny. T-Pon says, like you say, it's all or nothing. Be mindful of what you do all around. Yeah, exactly. It's not all or nothing, but I speak against the protein thing because I just think I like to look at like trends within the weight loss nutrition world. And, some of the trends I like Mediterranean diet, I think that's a great trend. Whole natural food, that never really got to be a trend, I would say, but I think that's a good trend. So there's trends I like, but I think the over protein one, I think is a little weird. Simply because, and I'll ask this question again, I ask this question every day. And if you all have an answer, please share it with me. But I like to ask, what's your reference point? Who are you referencing as a society that has a high protein diet that you want their health results of? Because a lot of times I study this stuff, folks. I'm not going to just show up here today. I've been doing this for 30 years, over 30 years personally, over 20 years professionally. And a lot of times the high protein people, now again, I'm not going to sit here and say Jen's telling me to just eat protein. I'm not going to do that to her. Right. But I think the high protein people a lot of times will reference like the Inuit Eskimo, right? Because they eat a lot of protein. And I say, oh, that's our example. But they don't have great health numbers to begin with. And second of all, they have a genetic mutation where they don't even go into ketosis, which to me is really interesting. And so I ask you again, I say, what big society are you looking at? What big group of people are you looking at that have eaten a high protein diet for any significant amount of time that have wonderful health markers? Now I will put my high carb, my whole natural societies up against that all day long. So when I make my decision what I'm going to eat and I look at the evidence, I don't see a lot of evidence that mainlining protein your whole life is a great way to go based on, again, tell me who. The Matsui tribe out in Africa, is that the health you want? So again, that's my big question. Is protein important? Obviously. But I think that whole natural foods and fiber, I'm not saying they're more important like in an absolute sense. I'm saying in a relative sense that the society we live in right now, I think think about it this way, right? When you think about processed foods, fiber does not process well. So they strip. If you eat processed foods, if you've been around in a culture with a lot of processed foods, you have automatically been in a culture that has stripped a lot of its fiber from the food. And you want to talk about absorption? You want to talk about blood sugar? Well, let's talk about fiber. Because the second you take all the fiber out, you speed up absorption tremendously. So, again, I think protein's important, but I think we already know that. People already eat enough protein. I don't think you all need to eat more protein, most of you. But I don't think I can say the same thing for fiber. I don't think you're all eating enough fiber. You want to talk about feeling full? Eat fiber for 2 weeks from a whole natural sources, and then let's have the conversation. And you don't hear that message a lot, do you? Are you listening to a lot of podcasts telling you to eat fiber all the time? Are you getting commercials for fiber all the time? Are you worried about your fiber intake? Probably not. And that's my big point, is that I think we're missing a way bigger thing. I think adding fiber to your diet, I would bet money for most of you is going to make a much bigger difference in your quality of life, your weight, your health, your happiness than adding more protein. That's basically what I'm saying here. Jen said, I got my information from diabetic educators that went to school and studied about diabetes and how to eat. Jen says, I don't like to spend my time on the toilet. Thank you. So if I eat 5 or for a whole week, for a whole 2 weeks, I wouldn't be able to get off the toilet. If you want to live in the bathroom, sure. That's so silly. That's so silly. Again, this is dumb as shit. And I don't mind that Jen's saying dumb shit. I appreciate it because it's good. It's good to kind of talk about this stuff because this is stuff that's rattled around in the back of a lot of our brains. You know, I promise I don't sit on the toilet all day. You know, it's so crazy. And it is funny to me too, because it's like, what do you just want to go to the bathroom once a week? Is that the goal? You only eat protein so you can go to the bathroom once a week? So you got more time to eat more protein? What's up, Pan? Love your work, Jim. Thanks for all my help in my weight loss journey. You're welcome. You're welcome. What's up, Jenny? Jenny says, I've been reading 1 chapter a night of your book, and it's been amazing. Thank you. I plan to read a chapter a night for a long time, starting the book over every 40 days. Yes, the book that she's referring to is this one. Let me flip this around. This is the book, and this is the way to do it too. I love how you're doing it, Jenny. This book right here, 40 Chapters of Magic, okay? Each chapter is a page, 2 pages long. Each one's a hypnotic story meant to change you as you read it. So as you read it, you start to think differently, feel differently, and ultimately act and behave differently, right? So this is a great book. So thank you, Jenny. I really appreciate you sharing that. Sally says, I like your teaching of eating whole foods and that have low calories and keep you feeling full longer. Yeah, I would say that's a great strategy. The beauty of whole natural foods that are full of fiber is they tend to have low calorie concentrations in them. So you eat them, you feel satisfied, but you've lowered your calorie content. Probably the most important factor of weight maintenance, you know, is feeling full while you lower the calories. That to me is the holy grail, right? And it's very much easier to do with whole natural foods full of fiber. Jane says, what do you think of protein shakes? I have a pre-made one each morning. Increasing fiber quickly after not eating much will send you to the bathroom a lot, but your body adjusts. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, your body is going to adjust. And again, please understand, I'm not talking about dieting mentality here. All of a sudden, you know, you eat 100% protein or 100% fiber, 100% whole natural food. I think jumping into any huge shift in your diet is going to wreak havoc with your bathroom habits. Okay. So yes, I'm talking about slowly transitioning. So anyways, what do I think of protein shakes? You know, again, I prefer whole natural foods. I don't love protein shakes. You know, I think they serve their purpose. You know, again, if they work for you, great. It wouldn't be something I would want to build my meal plan around, you know, because I don't like processed things. Okay. So anytime I can kind of move away from processed food to whole natural, I'll pretty much do it. So I would never make a protein shake the core of my thing, unless there's really whole natural protein shakes, I guess, which I'm sure there's, I guess, but they're very processed. I don't know how you'd make those, but again, I'd rather eat real food personally, because I think there's a lot more going on than just the macronutrient breakdowns of the food and the calorie consistency of it. I think there's a lot more going on. I'm a big believer in the microbiome, the food matrices, food is information. I think there's a lot going on when we eat real whole natural foods. That's what our bodies have evolved to eat over millions of years. And so the more I can keep it whole natural, the better, I think, in ways that I can't even imagine, you know? So what's your normal breakfast? Again, well, and then she follows it up by saying, I don't really like breakfast. That's fine. I mean, you don't have to eat breakfast. You know, to me, I think what's more important than like the specifics of what you eat is that you have a structure to it. So there's some consistency to it. We don't want to have all this randomness, random ways of eating. But my normal breakfast is I'll have a Ezekiel toast with peanut butter, natural peanut butter on it, an apple with some natural peanut butter and water. That's pretty much my breakfast. And that really satisfies me, you know, but again, you have to figure out what works for you though. But I think if you build it around whole natural foods, I think that's great. Yeah. So, all right, I got to get out of here. I got a lot of stuff to do this afternoon here. So again, if you're not in my world, please click the link in my bio, go get the free hypnosis session I give you. If you like this here, I'm here every Monday through Friday, usually around noon Eastern. And if you can't make the lives, it's also recorded to be a podcast. So you can go to any podcast platform, search Program Yourself Thin, and it'll pop up. And this book is now available. The Tao of Living at Your Goal Weight. It's over at Amazon. You can get the Kindle version or the physical version. It's not very much money. $2.99 for the Kindle, $9.99 for the physical version. This book's amazing. Got over 75 5-star reviews, so thank you very much. People loving it. So go check that out too if you want to. Sorry, everyone. Have a super duper day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.